Evening, I'd like to call the city council meeting to order. It is Tuesday, December 13th at 7 o'clock in the evening. We're in the city chambers, at the council chambers at the city center at 1140 Dealman Road. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Clark,
Here.
Councilmember Waldman,
Here.
Councilmember Knox,
Here.
Chairman Pro Tem Carl,
Here.
Mayor.
Here. Next item, please.
Mayor, the next item is communications. We have no written communications. However, we have 2 new police officers and a sergeant to be sworn in.
Good evening. We're going to begin with Randy Trim, and before I swear him in, I want to introduce him to everybody. Randy was born in Riverside, California. His parents, Robert and Gidget Trim, moved to St. Louis when Randy was little. And Randy has two little sisters, Cheyenne, who is here tonight, and Caitlin, who's not able to be here. Randy graduated from Bishop Duberg High School. Did I say it right? Bishop Duberg High School. He served in the United States Army for 8 years as a military police. For the last 3 years, Randy has worked with St. Louis Metropolitan Police Officer. Randy has been married for 7 years to Jennifer, and they have 2 sons, Rainer and Silas. So we'd like to call you up to the microphone so we can swear you in, and then Jen is going to pin you. I'm not strong enough. Right arm. I, Randy Trim,
I, Randy Trim,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I possess the qualifications
that I possess the qualifications
to serve as a police officer
for the city of Olivet,
for the city of Olivet,
St. Louis County, Missouri. That I will support the Constitution of the United States and the state of Missouri, and the charter and ordinances of the city of Olivet. And I will faithfully discharge the duties of this office by abiding by the law enforcement code of ethics. I recognize the badge of my office of a symbol of public faith as a symbol of public of trust to be held and honored. Thank you. It's fine.
You took a big chunk. So after you work out.
First district.
Okay. So after Jim pins him, then he'll come over and he'll sign his oath of office. What your kids would do? For your family? Perfect. Our next swearing in is Jason Bagsby. Jason is 25-year-old and born and raised in St. Louis. Jason attended Cardinal Ritter College Prep, and after high school, he went through EMT school and Basic Fire Academy. Jason served as an EMT for the city of St. Louis as a firefighter and the city of Cahokia. After he attended the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department Police Academy, and Jason was assigned to the 5th District in North City of St. Louis. In his free time, Jason is a DJ and event lighting designer, parties in the park. He is happy to join the Olivet Police Department and learn new skills to help further his career in law enforcement.
I, Jason Bagsby,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I possess
that I possess
all the qualifications
all the
to
qualifications
serve as a police officer
to serve as a police officer
for the city of Olivet.
For the
St.
s-
Louis County,
for the city of Olivet, St. Louis County, Missouri,
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States and the state of Missouri
and the charter
and the charter and ordinances of the city of Olivet,
and faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of this office
by abiding
by abiding by
by law enforcement principles.
the law enforcement code of ethics.
I recognize the badge of my office
I recognize the badge of my office
as a public faith,
as a symbol of public faith,
public trust,
and I accept it as a public trust to be held in honor.
Randy, come on up. Or officer. Our last swearing in this evening is not a swearing in of a new officer, but of someone that we've all come to love and really value on our police force. And Officer Dane Lincoln is going to be promoted this evening. And I would like to tell everyone a little bit about him. Officer Lincoln began his law enforcement career here in Olivet Police Department in February of 2016. After graduating from the Eastern Missouri Police Academy at the top of his class. Prior to his law enforcement degree, he worked in a retail sector for customer service to loss prevention. Officer Lincoln has held assignment of community engagement officer since March of 2020, when the assignment was created to consolidate many of the administrative tasks of our community events and planning into one position. With the challenges presented by COVID, he had to plan and execute police community events in 2020 and 2021. Officer Lincoln developed underlying processes to make the administrative efforts of the department more efficient. Officer Lincoln was awarded the department's Officer of the Year award in 2021 after open voting by his peers. In Officer Lincoln's free time, he enjoys weight training and running, reading biographies of American heroes and historical figures and books about World Wars I and II, sharing this love of history with his youngest son, Wyatt. Nope. Did I get that right? Okay. He enjoys cooking, attending local sports events with with his wife of 17 years, Mandy, and the school events of his three sons, Nate, Sam, and Wyatt. And this evening, following his swearing in, Sam is going to represent the family and Finn his dad. I meant Wyatt. Sam's my counterpart because we're both middle children. Wyatt. I, Dane Lincoln, do solemnly swear
I, Dane Lincoln, do solemnly swear
that I possess all the qualifications
that I possess all of the qualifications
to serve as a police sergeant
to serve as a police sergeant
for the city of Olivet, St. Louis County, Missouri.
for the city of Olivet, St. Louis County, Missouri.
That I will support
That I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the state of Missouri
and the state of Missouri
and the charter and ordinances
and the charter and ordinances
of the city of Olivet.
of the city of Olivet.
And that I will faithfully discharge
And that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
by abiding by the law enforcement code of ethics.
by abiding by the law enforcement code of ethics.
I recognize the badge of my office
I recognize the badge of my office
as a symbol of public faith,
as a symbol of public faith,
and I accept it
and I accept it
as a public trust to be held in honor.
as a public trust to be held and honored.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Would you like to invite all three of the sons to come up with him?
Oh, he does have a dog.
You like your parents and in-laws to join you? And now we'd like to invite all the other officers and the chief to join them as well. I need Officer Bagsby, Officer Tribb, and Sergeant Lincoln to please come sign their oaths of office. Find the right one. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Ah, I like that little. I like that poison in there.
Yeah. Oh.
Good job.
Family now, yeah.
Or breathe.
Are you ready?
Congratulations.
City clerk, can we? Next item, please.
Item number 3 is city manager's report. Thing.
Okay, well, we're going to start this evening with an update on our parks and our new communities center construction projects. You will notice that these reports are always just a little bit behind because they're for the prior month. So we're, being already almost 2 weeks into the month, it's a little bit got more done. But you will see that we have substantial completion in most, and actually all of our parks now. We have done a punch list for all of our parks with the exception of Irvside, which we have scheduled for tomorrow. We have, they have installed, they've completed the punch list for Stacy Park. They have completed most of the punch list for Villa. The water line has been installed. They've completed the punch list for Indian Meadows Park. And they have completed now the concrete trails and most of the landscaping in Irvside. So we've already done a little bit more than what this report shows. We have a couple of change orders on tonight's agenda and that you have seen and that are held, that are shown here under the contingencies and allowances. With regard to this project, they have met the DBE goal of the 15% by slightly over 15%. And we are really in the last month of completion of all the parks. And with that, we are very close to being right on budget. We've had a number of unexpected situations, particularly pertaining to the splash pads that required re-engineering and additional work with MSD, as well as additional work with water service. And so that put us a little bit over. As we talked about a couple of months ago, in a budget, when we discussed the budget for this overall project. While I do believe we will be over what we had anticipated as the expenditures, we do have the revenues to cover those through additional grant funds that we have received. These are some of the parks of the Irvside, or pictures of the Irvside Park. You'll see the new play structure is on the left. They put out the benches and the trash bins. That's the dog park. Actually the inside of the dog park in that middle picture, looking on the outside towards the dog park. And that's just a longer view of the new sidewalk in the park. You will have noticed that this week they completed some steps going into the park at the one end, at the easterly end. I think those look pretty nice. Again, it was just trying to make it so that there was understanding it's not handicapped accessible because it's stairs, but just trying to make another entrance at another side. There really was no way because of the steepness of that grade there to really make that accessible at that part. But the other two areas where you can enter the park are accessible. With regard to the community center and Morrison Park, again, we continue to make progress on that. The maintenance facility, the roofing, drywall, water hydrants, The Amarin pole, a lot of things within that maintenance building are complete. Today, I believe they were supposed to have full power to the maintenance building. The rain may have made that not happen. But if it didn't happen today, it should happen tomorrow. They're just waiting for Amarin to come back and flip a switch there. And so with that, there's a few more items to be done. Work projects that need to be done with that maintenance building, some waterproofing, some insulation. And the creation of a swale on the back. We anticipate that being done by the end of this calendar year. And so the park staff will be moving into that building in January. The community center, if you go by there, we'll have some pictures. Structural steel is done. The roof, interior floor and roof is about 85% complete. You can see a lot of the framing is done. More of the framing is done than the 50%. And so they're making progress on there, as you'll see from the pictures. We do not, at this point, we don't have a change order coming before the council this evening. There are some possible anticipated change orders that we may see. But at this point, there's still a lot of kind of back and forth on what those, trying to define and get more detail on the work that's necessary, and then review the pricing that was given. So at this point, we continue to kind of hold our own with the contingencies and allowance in this project. Again, of course, you can see it's getting close. And as we've discussed before, we have a ways to go. They're just now moving into the interior work on this, on the community center. They too are, with regard to their WBE participation of goal of 15%, they're at 17%. The MBE participation goal is 12.5 and they're at 12.82. So they do continue to make their MBE, WBE goals, participation goals. If you look at the owner's risks, again, the schedule risk or getting that maintenance building done. It's important to get that done so that we can move the park ground staff over there, because we are in the middle of completing phase 1 of abatement of the old community center, which is where they're working out of now. Phase 2 will be completed in January. And so we anticipate if the deadline for the maintenance building being done on the December 27th, holds, will be moving into the new maintenance building the first week of January. That will allow the final abatement to be complete. Final abatement has to, we won't have any heat or water in the building during the final stages of that. And we anticipate it being done, as I said, before the end of January, and with the demo of the building occurring in February. And so that's we're kind of watching that schedule because we want to make sure everybody has a home, and we have we are housing and storing some materials that will be moving to the new building in the current old facility, and we'll be moving those over to that maintenance building. Again, we have you can see the things that we've already done. The indoor playground equipment has been procured, really just waiting on, again, be able to, the time when that can be installed. Furniture has been purchased. We've had a meeting with Certified Nets and bringing them into the discussions for IT. And then also one of the things that we're working on is the AV system. There is a possibility that some of the AV equipment won't be in on time. It was ordered, but the lead time on some of the equipment is close to 12 months. And so that's created an issue. So anyway, so the project continues to move forward and to require a lot of attention by staff. These are the pictures. It's the first picture on the top left is the backside of Five Oaks. That sidewalk you see there is actually part of the Centennial Greenway that goes above and behind the new community center. In the middle, if you recall, the design has a tilted ceiling on that indoor playground, and you can clearly see that in here. It's kind of a nod to the existing community center. The picture on the far right is the western side. That's kind of that is the fitness center that you're looking at with the windows, et cetera. And then on the bottom is the maintenance building, both the outside and an inside picture of that maintenance building. With that, I'll move on to some of the other departments. The fire has continued their live fire training with West County EMS and fire. You can see here they have they're working to ventilate a roof. And so I like, if you read the department report that is in your packet, I like that the fire department has given kind of more of an explanation about what's really going on and why they're doing some of the training. And this is just one of the training stories that they have in their packet. This is some of the work that's going on again along Olive. On the left is the Olive Crossing. That's a picture from afar of the apartment complex. And that's an interior picture of some of the of one of the apartments. On the right is the Plant Haven. And again, they are open. And so it's kind of showing you the various things that they do have inside the building. So if you haven't been in there, be sure to go. On the weekend, they had reindeer, and some folks had some really cute pictures of kids with the reindeer. And I believe they're going to be there again this Saturday. In the police report, as everyone is aware, there's been a terrible increase in car break-ins and in thefts. One of the things that the Olivet Police Department is doing in conjunction with other municipal police departments in the county are these saturation details. And what they do, the various departments have extra patrols on whose sole purpose is to drive around and look for suspicious goings on with regard to vehicles and any other unusual activity. And if they do encounter something, then they will call in, and then everyone will kind of come in. The officers that are on the saturation detail will come towards an area. It has worked successfully in St. Charles County to help reduce some of their crime numbers. And so we are hoping it will also work here. Again, the best thing you can do to help prevent crime is lock your vehicles and remove all the valuables from your vehicles. It is just amazing the number of firearms that are retrieved, that people steal from vehicles. Help us help you, and remove your guns from your cars and lock up your cars. And then at the bottom, I kind of it's some of the stats from that police report again, which is in your packet and on the agenda on the website. Public Works on last week at my regular meeting with the Public Works and Planning directors, the Public Works director said he was concerned about not having enough road salt, that it hadn't come in yet. And by the end of the week, he had 600 tons. And so he didn't have that to complain about anymore. So it was good, but that is a lot. That is a lot of salt. That was a lot of big trucks delivering salt into the new salt dome. Yeah. Missouri American Water continues to work on projects throughout the winter. They did a switch over the Ingle Main. They'll be kind of finishing up that project this week, next week. They have issued permits for the main replacements on Ingleton Lane, Cordell Court, and Green Oaks Drive. And then the Oliver to Indian Meadows water main replacement project was awarded. And that pre-construction meeting is scheduled for December 12th, with work to begin in January of 2023. So we are getting a lot of attention from Missouri American Water, replacements of our water mains. Good news is that we're getting replacements of the water mains, and we're able to, Bruce McGregor, the Public Works Director, has been able to really leverage the paving that they've done on some of those to that go along with these water main projects to try and get more of our streets paved as well. But bad news is that during the time they're doing the construction, it is a bit of a pain. Other things going on, we've talked before about improvements on the north leg of Olive and Price, as well as the north leg of Olive and Dealman Industrial. Information was submitted today to MoDOT seeking a letter of support in the anticipation of the submittal for the MoDOT cost share and CMAQ grants. Total cost on those projects is close to about 1.7 million on that. If we can get the both the cost share and the CMAQ, the cost share does act, you can use the cost share grant as part of your match for the CMAQ grant, and the CMAQ grant is the air quality, if you recall. And so if you also remember, we were looking at doing those as two separate projects. Went with conversations with MoDOT, they suggested we combine them, would make a stronger application, and so that's what we're doing. So the first thing we need to do is get a letter of support from MoDOT, because that needs to go in your application package. Applications will be due in January or in February, I'm sorry. Comprehensive plan. The staff held a kickoff meeting with representatives from Shockey, Rise, and Lockmuir. Last week, a lot of that meeting was really just kind of the nuts and bolts of getting ready to do a major project. Who do we talk to get to, advertise public meetings? What days of the week are good for meetings? When, who do we talk to? Who's the point of contact for various things? So it's a lot of just that kind of the administrative work behind that. At the same time, Shockey is performing a lot of data collection and analysis. Looking at looking at the old strategic plan, looking at the other plans that we've had performed along the way, looking at a lot of our census data, looking at data from our police department, our fire department, our public works department. And so there is right now quite a bit of analysis going on. Recreational marijuana, staff and the city attorney continue to analyze, and the newly passed constitutional amendment 3, looking at what we need to amend in the current medical marijuana ordinance. At the work session on the 29th, we kind of went over with council what we saw, some changes that might be needed and where we didn't think we would need to make any changes. As the council is aware, at their meeting on December 6th, they met with Armanino, representatives from Armanino, and held a kickoff meeting for their diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative for the phase 1 of that initiative. Police and fire fire is completed and police is completing Department of Public Safety ARPA grant applications. This has been if we receive these grants, they're for a max of $20,000 with a 50% match. So if we apply for $40,000 worth of something, we would get the full $20,000 in grant. We've identified items from this year's capital improvement plan. If you recall, in the capital improvement this year, we identified some items that were in the capital plan, but were contingent upon some grants being received. So we are again really trying not to look for new things with grant funding, but look for those things that we've said we need and utilize the funding for those, the funding that's out there to pay for some of those things. The fire department has applied for some service pros that were needed for as they changed with the new dispatch software. They've applied for bailout belts, and they applied for some of the water rescue equipment that they had talked with the council about. The police will be looking at applying for electric bikes, which is on their capital plan for as a grant opportunity. And I believe they're also applying for do you remember what the last thing was that they were applying for? Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't remember. I believe we had a list of the things that they were going to apply for. It did allow you to go back to 2022 or to 2021 for some of your purchases. So as you know, the audit and the comprehensive financial report are complete. You'll see a report on that tonight, and work on the PAFR is underway, and that is the easy to read public financial report that we put out. It is December, which means we're 6 months into our fiscal year. So we are starting this month our mid-year review with departments, looking at budgets and status of goals and capital purchases. Fees and programming, Parks and Recreation staff are in the final stages of the fee structure for the new community center. I believe they were, those have come to the council once before. They went back to the Parks Commission for some additional review after the council made some suggested changes. I anticipate those coming back to you in January. A lot of the work they've been doing now is identifying new programming opportunities for when the new community center opens. Winter weather, Public Works, Parks crews have prepared equipment for winter weather emergencies just in time for 60-degree weather. So we should be, if we had to plow, we'd be ready, but haven't needed to do that yet. Olivet Turkey Trot. This is kind of about a little bit more of who participates in the Turkey Trot. This year we had 1,557 participants. Kind of shows the age group. If you look at that under 18, you can see, almost 28% of our people were under 18. That's a fun number. That means we were getting a lot of families in. It also, if you then look at the folks at the next big is 40 to 49. And the one complaint I got with the age groupings for medals was that when we first started, we had a 60 plus, and we were told, well, you need a 70 plus category. So so now it's 60 to 69 and then 70 plus. And this year we were told we need an 80 plus. So they want a 60. So I think that just says a lot about how healthy our participants, our residents are. And, people are still doing the 5K at 80 plus. The map on the right is a heat map. That's where people come from. So you can see while we do have, we have a pretty good reach into other parts of the county and the next county, we're really still very Olivet centric. We made more in donations this year than last year. And the real thing is, over $14,000 was raised for the Jewish food pantry. And so with that, I think it was a successful event, and it was a lot of fun. Well, other things we have going on here is the 4th annual holiday donation drive for Cops for Pets. You can still drop off things. It has a whole list of wish items. Again, the doors here the foyer doors are open 24/7, so you can drop them off anytime you want to. Our Toys for Tots campaign that ended yesterday, and that's a picture from prior to the end of that campaign. We probably had 2 boxes of things for Toys for Tots. So again, first year we've done Toys for Tots. I think it was very successful, and looking to have the same success with our Cops for Pets. Upcoming events. Tomorrow we have coffee with the mayor at 8:45 a.m. Special guests are Fire Chiefs Steve Carmen, Tim Fain, and Captain Parker Spencer. The Planning and Community Development meeting for this week has been canceled. The Park and Recs Commission meeting for December 21st is on. They do have a quorum. Offices are closed in observance of Christmas Day on December 26th. We have a Red Cross blood drive, December 27th from 2 to 6 p.m. here at the city center. Just remind folks, there really is a need for blood. So if you can come by, it's really quick. They do a great job here. Will be closed January 2nd in observance of New Year's Day, and the next regular city council meeting is January 10th at 7 p.m. With that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I'll begin with Councilmember Carl. Do you have any questions? I mean, Chairman Pro Tem, I'm sorry. Nope.
No,
I have nothing to report.
No, any questions? Do you have any questions? Councilmember Waldman?
Thank you very much. Ms. Sonda, I got a couple questions to follow up on. First off, I did notice those steps. And I said, OMG, what would happen to me if winter and snow and ice were to come? So that is really shifting when you went to snow and ice and weather. So what are we going to do with those steps when we do end up with that bad weather? I mean, that to me is a huge risk. So you don't have to answer that. Okay. 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 The Oliver to Indian Meadows Water Project, that meeting was held yesterday because today's the 13th. That said, that meeting was held yesterday. I'm not familiar with that, but I'm clearly familiar with Oliver Lane, Indian Meadows, and Grandview Drive because I grew up there. So I'm not sure where that project is happening. On Oliver and Indian, in between Indian Meadows and Oliver, on Olive, or down at the bottom where Oliver is. Okay, I'd like, okay,
I'm sorry, I'll get back with you on the exact location of
Okay.
the project. I'm not exactly sure. I meant to put the map in here and then I didn't do it.
yeah, because I got a little history there with regard to water problems, issues in Oliver Lane. May
Mhm.
Mr. Corrick rest in peace. And I was just curious if that's the area. It's been a long time problem. Thank you very much for your very extensive reporting. I appreciate that. The next question I want to ask is about the electric bikes. Is that for our community policing to get back into some community policing?
I'm sorry.
The electric bikes, is that for us to get back into some community
We
policing?
had, they purchased new bikes. They have gotten the bike, team up and going again. And then one of the suggestions was for electric bikes as well. If they have electric bikes, but particularly when we have the Centennial Greenway and some of the other trails within the city, they can get to places pretty quickly. So the difference between having just a manual bike and an electric bike actually does impact response time and makes them possibly able to assist at other calls. Obviously, they wouldn't necessarily go on a call on their own on a bike, but they could more rapidly get to a call and assist someone else.
Okay, because previously it was, we don't have anyone that's going to be a biker on bike patrol, which is why we never really bought bikes. We kind of lost that as Wolf moved up the chain of command. So we do have a bike patrol, a group
Mhm.
of folks. Okay, very good. When you talked about the comprehensive plan and these folks beginning to gather stuff and looking at data and historical stuff, are they looking at the old vector report? Does that include looking at the old vector report?
I doubt, I mean, it's possible, but I doubt
Okay.
they went back
Okay.
that far.
Okay.
I wouldn't think they would.
I was just curious because I was wondering that myself, if they would really go back that far. Not that it really would influence anything today, but if you're trying to get a perspective of things,
Mm.
it's a good report to get perspective from how things were.
Yeah, I doubt they would go back that far
Okay.
with all the other things that we have
Okay,
and the
Okay.
things that have changed since then.
okay, okay. Okay, and those are my questions. So thank you very much for that
Thank
follow-up.
you.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
Next item is city council reports.
I'll start at this end.
I have nothing to report.
Council, Chairman Pro Tem, Mr. Carl.
nothing to report.
Member Carl, Clark, and
Madam Mayor,
Councilmember Waldman.
thank you very
I got
much.
twisted up there with all the-
It's okay.
Carl.
We're getting ready for holiday mode. That's okay. That's okay. Hanukkah, Christmas, Kwanzaa, it's all good. So on December 1st, the city of Olivet did hold its planning and community design commission meeting. and Carlos Trejo usually gives us a very good summary and report on that. There was a text amendment discussion with regard to the minimum lot width for homes that are under the 40-foot, they're under the 50-foot guidelines. This was approved 6-0 to recommend it to the city council for consideration and adoption. And it is my understanding that it'll be, as the mayor noted, on our January 10th city council meeting 2023. Discussion items were brought by several people. One was in discussing outdoor lighting and talking about the looms of lighting and how it can be a danger and endangering and impacting the visibility of seeing things, presented by a local citizen and all of that, would like for us to consider looking at modifying our current outdoor lighting regulations and best practices. There was a proposed private dog park business presented for in the light industrial district area. I think in the very last place we have actual land left and not a building. So they came and presented their idea because this was not something that we have currently within our zoning. So they presented that to the PCDC members, and some interesting conversation went back and forth. 9549 Old Bottom Road subdivision that was deferred. And that was pretty much the most important things that we talked about within the Planning and Community Design Commission of December 3rd. And that is all I have to report, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. I attended on, I believe it was December 6th. I attended the Housing Authority meeting, and at that time we approved the budget for the fiscal year of 2023. There was a conversation, the executive director, Shannon Koenig, shared about the building renovations of their office that are coming up, and the proposed the proposal received in November focused on safety, security, and functionality. The employee that she also discussed employee engagement, that they have a diversity council and a fund committee. So they're doing a lot to keep their employees engaged as well. They reported on the 2023 Public Housing Authority plan, described and updated the organization's activities for the upcoming fiscal year. 100% of the units of the 14 units in Olivet are being utilized at this time. 34 out of the 40 have not needed any fixing up or anything. And then, so that's about 86% that they've had to do some like little repairs in some of the different ones. And those issues have been rectified. Oh, I'm sorry. They received 34 points out of 40 on their scoring, but those have been rectified. There was a piece in one of the play yards in the area that had a pipe, and so that had to be removed. So they not only do that, they judge by how your occupancy is going, but they also judge the physical environment in these units. And then they had a report. They did a survey on customer service, and they got very high ratings, and the report was shared as part of their strategic report of 2022. And it was a very good meeting, and it's a really a great experience. And later this evening, we will be appointing a new housing authority member to the commission. So I'll talk about that in a little bit. Any questions? Okay. Onward bound. Next item, please.
Next item is the monthly financial report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight we have our October report. We're gonna be a month behind until the end of January, since we had just a single meeting in November and then a single meeting in December. So with that, we're rewinding a month and a half, and We see our revenues are above where we'd expect, about $40,000, expenditures down about, or sorry, below where we'd expect, about 542,000. It's not as bad as it might seem at first as far as our budgeting is concerned. You can see we swore in 2 new police officers here, so mostly personnel related things they're doing that on some vacancies. And don't forget, we have 2 new positions in our planning and community development department that we are still actively hiring for. So what that puts us 6 months down in where we thought for our budgets. And it all translates into, I think we're going to meet our expectations given kind of where the operations are. We're going to be revisiting this in the next couple months with an anticipated budget amendment. But in any case, the reserve policy, we're now in compliance in the neighborhood of $3.5 million. So all is good there. Sales taxes are good if we go down to the revenue stuff there. I will warn, we do have a bad November coming, one of our lowest ones. So that's usually we see a chart with a little fast forward. I didn't include it this time because I didn't know. We have some preliminary stuff from the state on December, but it looks to be the upswing. So it was just a timing difference of what we saw. So the going down our main revenue categories, property taxes are above where we thought they'd be on prior year collections. So some people, folks paid their 2021 taxes late, and so we get it now as a prior. Now we fast forward into December, our property tax collections have started, and it looks everything is looks to be where we thought they'd be for budget. With that kind of collection comes is our semi-annual pension payment. We'll see that's coming up here in December. And when I say pension payment, all the citizens pay their property taxes, and included in that is a portion of that is for the pension. And then we collect that the city collects that, and then twice a year in December and in June, the city forwards that onto the pension. So that's our pension payment, the employer contribution part of the pension. So that'll happen here in December as those collections for property tax ramp up. Utility taxes, they're slow. We talked a little bit on the expenditure side here as we go down this page. Some of the in addition to why our expenditures aren't where we thought they'd be, is some of our bigger projects, namely the bigger projects in our operations are with the comprehensive plan. It's I shouldn't say slower than we expected, but when we set our budgets by month, I just divide it, up into 12 chunks unless I know something different. And so we're a little behind there. And that's something that usually catches up over time. So again, where we thought we would be. If we go down to our charts, I skipped over the utility taxes a lot. I know these are a little tough to read, and if you get if anybody gets a chance or wants to read, this is online. Our bright green lines is what we're looking at for our electric gross receipts in 2023. And what does it see? What do we see here? We can see it's pretty low, over time. And more importantly, the orange line is 2022. There's nothing that would have told us that we would be where we are today with things slower than we thought. So we started out July, the lowest ever. And we just haven't, the time, it wasn't a timing difference. It's just not going to recover through there. So that's what we see in our electric gross receipts, which is a majority player in that utility taxes category. And then the next one is our telecom receipts. Now these are by year. The months go across, but then the little stacks there are by year. And this is a really good chart it shows how drastic this telecom receipt account has changed since 2017. And there's lots of reasons that we go there. But I brought it in here today because we do see a little bit of maybe some stability. Now I've said these words before, and it always kind of falls out from there. But we see some stability, and it's those the light green, which is the final right one in each month. It's not dropping as much as it had before, and so we hope that this changes. We look in this fast forward into November. So there's kind of our story of our utility tax receipts. What's going on here, and it's a combination of things. So what does that mean? We probably won't be making our budget in some of these utility tax categories, and that's something we can take a look at in the next couple months. That concludes what I have for the financial report, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions or do any more research that we might look at going forward.
Can you go back to that graph just before this page and just let me ask a question? No, yes, ma'am, right there. Is 2021 high just because of the pandemic? And that we
Yeah,
used more
so-
because of that?
When we see 2021 there, the big spikes, the ones, the anomalies, I guess, in this huge chart have to do with the settlement of lawsuits. They're with various companies. I could go back and look. 17, I think, was the AT&T singular one, and then this one in January of 21, I believe, was with another cellular company, and Mr. Martin might be able to remember, but in any case, what the spikes we see here are not some magical big collection or something that happened. They're lawsuit settlements, which are the actual alleviation of this entire chart going downhill, which is part of that story. And there's more lawsuits that are occurring. It's just a strange kind of situation. But that's what it means for us. So good question though.
I have a question for the city manager. I know that the police department had a retirement with Sergeant Waite, and then the Parks Department had one with Leonard Perry. Have they been replaced? I know we see,
Yes,
so is the police department up to full staff?
we have one more that is in process and we
Right.
hope to have that in full.
Okay, and then the parks they've replaced.
Yes,
Marvin was
yes.
promoted.
Yeah, Merlin was
Merlin was
promoted and then we hired Cody. We hired Cody.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, we're pretty much at full staff with regard, we are hiring for the two new positions in the planning department. We have the police officer and court, and the court, an assistant court clerk.
And
The police clerk has been hired, just hasn't started yet.
right. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Mr. Mann? Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item is hearing from citizens. And I did give you one card, Mayor.
Everyone that is on Zoom that would like to speak. Item, please.
Next item is appointment to Olivet Housing Authority Commission.
If
Public
you have
comment?
it's not a public hearing tonight, so if you have a comment, you're welcome to make it at this time before we move forward. And then there will also be a time to speak towards the end of the meeting. If you want to speak now, please come forward. You need to share your name and address. And you have to limit your comments to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Raphael Tomanson, 809 Newcastle Drive. I'm a little confused on the status of what these things are, so I apologize if I'm speaking out of turn. But I think you're talking about two things related to kind of marijuana regulation tonight. One of them is whether to put a ballot initiative about a sales tax on marijuana products. And I wanted to speak in favor of such a measure. I think that there's numerous benefits that this could bring. One is, I think that either it might set the right tone about kind of how we view these retail stores, or if there's a lot of entry, then it brings in revenue. So it seems win-win to me. I think it's one of those items that because it's going to the voters, I honestly don't know what the voters are going to say. I'll just be there. But I think it is nice to bring these sort of ballot initiatives to the voters and then allow the voters to decide what to do. So I'm strongly in favor of that. There's a second item that I don't think you're voting on, but you're discussing, which is about not having smoking of marijuana on the sidewalks. Actually, to me, this is a more important, even more important item. I strongly feel that it's important not to allow people to smoke marijuana on sidewalks. I've been to several cities. I lived in LA Los Angeles, when they started allowing marijuana smoking, and I've been back quite a few times there. And you can't go out to dinner, you can't walk around. I mean, it's just overwhelming. And it seems like one of those things where it's really important to just have a rule in that kind of stops all of the bad odors before it gets started. I know there was some concerns at the last meeting about whether this may lead to harassment of different individuals. I think there's ways around that. Right now, the law has a penalty of $100, maybe at least for early violations, that amount could be less. Or maybe there's a way to put a provision in, I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, to not allow that to be a basis for search and seizure. I'm okay with all of those things. I just think it's important not to allow smoking on smoking. I don't want cigarette smoking there either, but not allow smoking on sidewalks and public places, and kind of keep that activity as kind of things that are done in private residences. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments at this time? We'll continue with item number 7.
That's the appointment of Stephanie Fool to fulfill the Housing Authority Commission vacancy. The mayor, I don't know if you want to take this, but Dr. Fool is a resident of Olivet, holds a BS in recreational administration, PhD in social psychology, professor of psychology at Lindenwood University. She did attend last week's Housing Authority meeting. I think she'll be a great asset to the Housing Authority Commission, which has a lot of changes going on right now.
She has also shared with me in her bio that she gave to us part when we were discussing her appointment, that she and her husband Kobe are thankful for the Olivet community and the Ladue School District for providing the best possible environment to build and thrive as a family. Like City Manager Barb Sondag just said, Dr. Fool is a professor of psychology at Lindenwood University. In addition to teaching research and service, she is an advocate for racial equality and giving her training in social psychology, how the social spaces we occupy affect our individual behavior. And her love for Olivet, she would be honored to serve on the Housing Authority as she thinks that equability and plan intentionality as we plan for intentionality within our community. And she will be a great asset to the Housing Authority and Commission. And last week she already made some recommendations and had a great idea, which was there's some of the things that we're doing where they do these like surveys and different things, how you could get college students to participate and, help, look at the data. And so that was kind of exciting. And we made that connect right off the bat in the discussion. So I think she'll be a great asset, and I would be, I'd like to recommend the action.
Doesn't need a second to it. You're nominating, if we have to go through that nomination, second. But I don't think we do.
So is there a formal vote? So I'll call for a motion.
Madam Mayor, I thought you did, but we'll move an
Okay.
appointment to Stephanie Fool to fill a Housing Authority Commission vacancy with a team ending July 31st, 2024.
Call for the vote.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Knox,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldman.
Yes.
Chairman Carl,
Greg,
Sorry, yes,
Mayor,
not quick enough on the lead.
motion passed.
thank you. And she was in touch that she was unable to be here tonight. She had a conflict, otherwise she would have been here. So thank you. I'll pass it along. Next item, please.
Next item is approval of financial statements for year ended June 30th of 2022.
Good evening once again, Mayor and Council. My name is Darren Mann, and I'm the Finance Director for the city. And last week we had, or 2 weeks ago, I guess now today, we had our visit from Alan Schulte with Bob Hill and kind of went over it with the council here. So he was not able to join us tonight. But I will be taking over some of these duties. I'll keep it a little shorter than we did that night. But I will hopefully give some folks some tools that are interested. First, go ahead. If we look at the credit on the bottom, it was a citizen, I believe a citizen, Nina Miller is,
Nina is on,
This
she's
is a,
on- is she-
is she, this is a phenomenal picture. Texture. There's so much texture in this photograph. It is utterly beautiful.
is she still?
way
on
better than
Zoom
I
to
could
hear-
take. I would agree with that.
Barb, is she still on Zoom to hear the compliment? Oh, good.
Fantastic. I hope you're as excited about the rest of it as you are about the cover. It is oftentimes the cover is the best part. So I hope I can keep that up at least, it is. It's hard to find photos and I'm really glad for Keanu Fleming and for reaching out to Nina and then for Beverly Tucker Knight for recognizing the picture itself. So I would not have found that myself. It's excellent. Yeah. As we go through, I'll just keep this pretty short. We have recovery here. I'm going to go over most of the stuff in the management discussion and analysis, which is kind of the elevator speech of these financial statements. They're fairly long, go into the 80 something pages, but we have while we kind of scroll through this transmittal letter, you can keep going, Barb, it's just fine. This is the 7th submission for the annual comprehensive financial report, which is called the ACFR. But it is the kind of the gold standard certificate of achievement from the Government Finance Officers Association. And what does that mean? It's as far as in my realm of the governmental finance realm, this is the gold star in reporting. And it's advanced reporting. It's probably double the size that it would be otherwise is required. With that, on page 4, which is that PDF, page 16. I guess we'll stop right here for this. The report that we have. This is from the auditors themselves. They signed this. What do we have here? A clean opinion, which means they didn't find any issues, and there's nothing here that would raise any alarm bells as far as during what they found during their audit procedures, which is good news and something to pay attention to if you don't receive that. But so let's go to page 16 of the PDF, which is page 4 of the document itself, probably 3 or 4 pages, Barb. And then what we see there, some highlights, some financial highlights. Again, like we talked about with the 7th year for submission. Our construction in process, which is CIP, is at $4.9 million. And that's reflective of the parks improvements that are going on. Remember, this is as of June 30th. So, nearly 6 months old. It tells a lot of the story, of what's going on, as far as what takes a lot of time for staff. Overall, you'd find in here $5.1 million in capital spending. So again, 4.9 of that is still in process, things that are ongoing. We received $808,000 in grants for the year. Some of this has to do with the American Rescue Plan Act funding. A lot of it is here is listed is for from the Great Rivers Greenway for the Centennial Trail. So that will continue on as we earn and spend the ARPA funding, which only half of it is listed here. Our net position, which is at $2.9 million, a fairly strong number, is added to this year. And it increased because of the grant funding that we received and also because of the debt service collections. And when we issued the 2020 debt service, general obligation, that increased our debt. Well, that also meant that we had to collect more money from citizens for that debt service collection. And so that just increases the amount of revenue you have. That revenue just goes out the door to pay for that debt too, though. So it just kind of increases what we look at that stuff. In addition, in these financial statements that we have here this year in FY 22, you would find $8.8 million of refunding for the 2014, which is for this building, the 2014 general obligation. Why would we do that? It's essentially a refinance for what we had here. There, it happens kind of quietly as far as the public is concerned. It's something that only requires council action, not a vote. But why would we do that? It's advantageous and looks to save the taxpayers somewhere around $1 million over the next 20 years. So that's good news there. As we go to the next page, page 6, I guess 2 pages ahead of this on page 6. The city itself has $56 million in assets. About half of that is in our capital assets. And the other half is right now is in cash, and it's restricted for use for our building, for the community center, for our parks. So it's part of that 2020 issue for the general obligation, and that will be held and be spent down. So what we see there is that current assets at the top, the 30 million, gradually turns into capital assets and then begins to be depreciated. And then as we look down that list, $32 million in liabilities. In the neighborhood of 25 million of that is actually just debt. So we have cash and we have our capital assets, and then we have debt associated with that, and the rest of it kind of becomes free to use on certain things. And that leaves $21.8 million. Inside of that liability number, this year, about $1.8 million of that is for the pension, is pension liability. And that's the best we've seen, since I've been here at least, and probably in the last 15 years or so. Now, we're going to see a change in that as we move forward into the next year. Obviously, the valuation for the pension is every December. So we'll see a $4 to $5 million loss coming in through that. That gets amortized over 4 years. So you can see there that will have an impact on these financial statements. If we go to page 8, then we'll see more from the tables themselves. You can see a graph. Let's go to the bottom here. And this graph is the impact, and this is just for our general fund of what we see for sales taxes in the red. And you can see the outsized portion of, I would not say the increase of the sales tax that becomes a bigger share of these revenues. These are the revenues right here that we talk about during a monthly financial report, which is in the red is sales taxes. The blue there is in utility taxes, which again, we talked about the long decline there. Property taxes, the slow boring green lines, and then our remainder category, which is green, and that's our charges for services. We would call that when we go to the sign our kids up or sign our grandkids up for sports. That's like what we would consider a charge for a service here. Other things that come in there, licenses, permits, the strong increase that we see, that plateau is due to the reopening of some of our sports programs after the pandemic, and also because of strong ambulance collections that have been steady over this time period, and really strong permit activity as people really invested in their houses, and the rebuilds continue. And commercial properties, we can look up and down all of it and not be surprised that permits have been really strong there. If we go to the next page, on page 9, we see the impact of this. We added up all those lines on the previous graph, we would get the blue line at the top. And what this story, more than anything, we see in the blue line, it dipped there in 19 because sales taxes cooled off a little bit. You can see we cooled off our expenditures in response to that, as that kind of plateaus over that next year. And what this represents even more than anything is probably the uneasy and unclear staying power of that large red line of the sales taxes. I will point out here, as we see in FY 15 and 16, the lines almost touch. Every single time we approved a budget, they were touching. Or actually the red line was the blue line. And this is what happens when your sales taxes exceed where you're at. More in FY 22 has way more to do with the vacancies we were experiencing in their personnel related vacancies that created that gap that's there. So that's a good kind of summary of where we're at with the audit figures. Page 11, at the bottom of page 11, we can see our debt payoff schedule, and this is kind of a new chart that we introduced over the last year. And yep, at the bottom, and you can see this is interesting only because of how when the the 2021 general obligation is completely paid off again in 2034. What happens is the 2020 issue then steps up its payments, and that creates a flat payment schedule for for everyone here that pays taxes, and so we don't get a huge jump and then a big drop off. So that's a credit to that goes to our financial advisor, which is Joy Howard, who creates this kind of schedule. Takes a look at that and says where these fit in. The other kind of lower parts of that green and gray are for our NIDS, which is in North Price and at Dealman. You can see how what a small portion they play in our overall debt schedule. This will be we'll go one more page and then I'll kind of finish up. But on page 18 is the MD&A summarizes most of what we're clicking through here. But on the far left, we don't need to see a whole bunch, but we can see there on page 18, the general fund. And that's where a lot of our operations, or we have a lot of our revenue that doesn't belong anywhere else or isn't required to be anywhere else, lives in that general fund. We would see in there the third from the bottom, positive $488,000 that we sent down to the fund balance. We talked about some of the reasons just a little bit ago. And again, here's where we would see the $5.1 million in capital outlays. And it comes in way across on the right side. But the 5.1 itself is right in the center of the page in that debt service and construction fund. So there's a lot goes on in kind of some of these things. I'm more than happy to answer anybody's questions. You don't have to look at it tonight. They're here. You can see over time. The last thing I would say is page 49 kind of looks at our pension over time. Is good schedules. And then on page 69 and on is that statistical section. And what you find in there is over time, 10 years usually, you'd find out our top taxpayers, find out things like how much debt we have over time, how much each person's responsibility of that debt is in both just in the city of Olivet for the citizens, but what about overall in the region? They call it overlapping between the Ladue School District, the St. Louis County, and the city of Olivet. What is each citizen kind of on the hook for when it concerns debt? And there are kind of some interesting facts. They're important to some people, namely our rating agencies for our debt itself. We'd also find that the revenue in the general governmental funds has went up 46% of time over this time period right here, which is a lot of that affects a lot of operations. That affects a lot of during that expansion. Again, we didn't see a huge gap that maintained expenses went up during that time. So what we saw in the city of Olivet over this time period of 10 years is a lot of revenue expansion, and that went with it expenditure expansion too. We've got lots of new buildings. We have lots of new faces, lots of new employees, and that's the story that this would tell you. And where did it come from? We saw the sales taxes, property taxes. There's a lot of information there. Again, I'm more than happy to answer any questions or have a discussion with anybody. If as it meets your needs today, or if we find anything out over the course of the year.
I know that our auditor, Alan Schulte, was at our last meeting on November 29th and answered a lot of questions and
You bet.
kind of gave a preemptive presentation to tonight. I don't know if there are that many questions, because I know some people have already had conversations since then. So we'll start at this end. Councilmember Waldman, do you have any questions?
Actually, no, I met with Darren on some of my questions and thoughts and really praised again this document, and that if you go back and you read each year's budget, which I tend to do because year after year, you make it more interesting and easier and wonderful to read and understand. The verbiage of what we see we've accomplished every year when Darren signs, our perspective. It's the verbiage of what we've done, where we've been, and now with the campaign where we're going. So this book alone, if you just read the first 13 to 15 pages of this book, every budget book since 2013 or when Darren came, you're going to be able to see and read and understand what we've accomplished and where we've been. Kudos to the city and hats off to everybody.
And where we're going. Yeah, really helps us. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
No question.
Comments? Okay. Chairman Pro Tem, do you have
I
any?
do not have any questions.
Okay, so we need to.
I would
Other than
add-
I'm going to say, Darren, the presentation was just as good as the picture.
I don't, pretty good picture.
Okay, so at this time, we need to have someone make a motion, and then we need to vote on it. And
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the budget as, or not the budget, I'm sorry, the financial statements as reported for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022. There we go.
Second,
call for the vote, please.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Knox,
yes.
Councilmember Waldman.
Yes.
Chairman Carl,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes,
motion passed.
thank you. Next, thank you, Mr. Mann, as always. Next item, please.
Next item is resolution number 2022-233, a resolution authorizing and directing the city manager to execute a limited waiver on behalf of the city with respect to certain provisions in the development and performance agreement between the city and Easy Storage Olivet LLC.
Thank you. As the council is aware, we have an agreement, redevelopment agreement with Easy Storage Olivet for the, with regard to their construction along Olive Boulevard of a storage, indoor storage building along with retail on the bottom, on the first floor. That redevelopment agreement calls for the substantial completion by December 31st, 2023. While Easy Storage Olivet was working towards closing out their financial agreements, the banks kind of questioned whether they'd be able to get that done and constructed within that period of time. It probably would be difficult given the different things that are occurring right now. In here, there is a letter from the developer that gives the reasons, for the delay. And also reaffirms their desire to complete the project within the next 16 to 18 months. And so what we have done is the waiver would extend the date of substantial completion from December 31st, 2023 to December 31st, 2024. Jamie Mansfield, with the attorney with Armstrong Teasdale representing Easy Storage, was with us tonight. If you would like Jamie to come up. Paul Martin was also involved in these discussions. If you would have any questions for any of us, we'd be happy to answer those. I'm sure among the three of us, we'd be able to get these done.
Mr. Martin, do you have anything to share with us prior to Ms. Mansfield coming up?
No, other than this is an unusual occurrence, especially in light of the current circumstances with pandemic and its aftermath and supply chains, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So Gilmore and Bell was also involved in it, and no one has any concerns.
And you believe that it's possible to have it done in 16 to 18 months, not the full, do you?
That's what they say.
Ms. Mansfield, do you want to join us at the mic and share your thoughts?
Good evening, everybody. I just would feel remiss sitting here all night without saying hello to you. I know my partner Rob Clark has worked with Mr. Martin and Gilmore and Bell extensively, along with Associate Libby Gruby. I am stepping in, pinch hitting here tonight. Rob speaks alphabet soup. I do not, so I apologize. He actually gets to witness in person his daughter's graduation. So that's why he is not here this evening, and I'm sure more able to answer these questions. But I have worked with this developer before and worked with you guys on the zoning approvals years ago, and the letter sets forth exactly what those delays are. We have every intention on moving forward. There is kind of another little anomaly that's in the letter about the height of the building to a lot for the lot size being so tall is the structural support, which is like a different supply chain issue too. So that's just like a nuance I wanted to mention here. And again, I think this waiver gets into place and gets into motion, then a lot of other little discussions and moving through that I know our developer right now is talking with Carlos on finalizing those plans. We also had a little hiccup with a neighbor trying to get our temporary construction easements back into place, given COVID time constraints. So we have been working and, it's not been easy. So we very much appreciate your guys's help in this and very much look forward to being a good corporate citizen here.
We're anxious to see this done.
Sure. Yeah.
Uh,
Me too. They do beautiful things. I mean, I don't know if you got to go see the other facilities too, but they do beautiful and really neat job. So, and this one in particular with all of the landscaping and other neat things too, I'm excited to see.
Are there any comments or questions? Councilmember Waldman?
Well, with no due respect to you, Mr. Martin, we've seen things fall through the cracks in 22 years. You and I've been together 22 years almost. And the gentleman before you, rest in peace. What happens if they don't meet the timeline in December 2024? What's next?
Well,
I mean, what's in here? That would address that.
there's a poker term called pot committed,
Mhm.
and I believe the developer is very much pot committed to getting this thing done. And I believe that the city is also in a sense committed to this project. So the technical answer, what happens if they don't make December 2024? It's a violation of the agreement. You can shut them down. But under the circumstance, it depends on what the circumstances could be at the time.
Okay.
But I think there would have to be pretty severe circumstances to justify blowing this up now.
Are we going to be giving in anything with regard to our retail requirements in order for them to meet their December 2024 guideline? Or deadline, I'm sorry. I mean,
Those were negotiated and are part of the agreement. I can't tell you that I remember exactly what they were. But I don't think those they haven't changed in this.
Nothing in
this
the,
waiver.
nothing in the redevelopment agreement changes. This is just a waiver for that date. That's the only thing.
okay, okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Do you have an anticipated date of breaking ground? And I see that they've been doing the sewers and different things.
The MSD work.
Yeah.
I know that they are speaking with Carlos right now. In fact, I think maybe yesterday they had an extensive meeting with Carlos on some other configurations with the plans and in going through that process too. And so I think that coupled with, tonight getting, the resolution passed and then getting the final stamp from Carlos, we start getting those orders in and getting the steel in. And so, I hope spade to ground would be happening soon thereafter. I apologize, Madam Mayor, that I don't have that actual date, but I can certainly get the developer to communicate with you guys on that. I just know that working with Carlos and getting the plans finalized has been kind of this last little.
I know that the
Inching towards
council
the finish
members
line.
would love to hear a date and maybe possibly even see a timeline.
And then,
And I
then
know,
this,
we understand the challenges of the supply line.
Mhm.
It's just been, this is a project that's been going on for almost 9 years.
can you say the word steel? They're waiting for steel.
Yeah.
I know someone out there that's waiting for steel. And
Wow.
that concerns me, is that you may not have all your materials and get this finished by December 2024.
That's the hope. And they're really pushing toward the 16 to 18 months. And what I don't want to do is be back in front of you on a 16-month timeline, asking again, when it's like, if we could get, that year and then a year earlier, we would be celebrating for sure. So I just want to make sure I budgeted enough time.
Thank you. Chairman Pro Tem, do you have any comments?
Other than I can appreciate the reasons that this deal is delayed, no.
Well, they're paying. The steel delays. Okay, I'd be happy to entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor, I motion to approve resolution 2022-233, a resolution of the city of Olivet, Missouri, authorizing and directing the city manager to execute a limited waiver on behalf of the city with respect to certain provisions in the development and performance agreement between the city and Easy Storage Olivet LLC.
Second.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Knox,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldman,
Yes.
Carl,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes,
motion passed.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. and
Congratulations to
good
your
holidays,
officers.
and happy
too, by the way.
holidays.
That was really neat to see. So.
Next item, please.
Next item is approval of the purchase of a breathing air module compressor package from Sentinel Emergency Solutions at a cost not to exceed 50,000.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council, Ms. Sondag. In 2004, the city of Olivet purchased an air compressor system for filling SCBA bottles. The SCBA is an air bottle system that firefighters wear on their back for entering toxic atmospheres. Since 2004, updates and improvements have been made for removing toxins from the air that we put in these compressed bottles. Going from a system of 2 bottles to 4 bottles with the new update that we're asking. In anticipation of this coming to replace the system, we have been budgeting money into the capital improvement budget. We have a quote from Sentinel at this time for the budget, and that is well under budget. We are requesting of approval for the purchase of a new air compressor system. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
And I would like to add on to what the chief has said, that a little bit different here. Well, the council's aware that we use other RFPs for purchase, like the state contract, the vehicles. We don't typically use other municipalities, but we can. And in this case, we are using one done by Hazelwood. Finance director reviewed their procurement policies, reviewed the RFP. And then we looked at, discussed the situation and feel that really this is probably an expeditious way of getting this done without using a lot more time or money.
Are there any questions?
Nope. Nope.
You reviewed the Hazelwood stuff?
Excuse me?
You're the ones that review what Hazelwood did with their RFP?
Yes, I looked it over and I sent the RFP to Barb and asked her what her thoughts were on it as well.
And to Darren.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Mhm.
okay.
So we looked at it from different perspectives, from the specifications of what they were looking
Yes.
for, from the procurement angle, and then just from mine of looking at it just from overall administrative, whether we wanted to do this or not.
How do you dispose of the old one once they have all those toxins in?
Well, there's filters in the system that
Okay.
remove the toxins, so we replace those. It's regularly maintenance
Okay.
once a year. And Sentinel has, they are going to remove the old system for us and dispose of it, so we don't have to.
Okay, that's part of the package.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Are there any other questions?
Nope.
There's,
I'd like to make a motion to approve the purchase of a breathing air module compressor package from Sentinel Emergency Solutions at the cost not to exceed $50,000.
Second.
Call for the vote, please.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Knox,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldman,
Yes.
Chairman Carl,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes,
motion passed.
Thank you.
thank you. And we're looking forward to tomorrow morning. Get a good night's of tough questions.
Sleep quick.
Next item, please.
Next item is approval of Hankins Construction Change Proposals 35 and 37 totaling $23,543 for the Parks Improvement Project. Bring that up here.
You have two change proposals in front of you. 37 or 35, I'm sorry, is within Stacy Park, the bioretention area that is in kind of the front of the park near Old Bonham Road. It is not working the way it was designed to work, and it required, it was allowing too much silt and other debris to get into the retention area. So this is a plan, and you saw it in the backup information, to utilize other rock and other materials to prevent the silt from getting into the detention basin. The other is for a backflow cage for the splash pad at Villa Park. These just, they weren't part of the specifications, so they didn't get ordered. But you really need that equipment to be, have a cage on it. I think there's, it shows you a picture. So this is what it is now, and this would put a cage over top of it.
That is the backflow that's in Indian Meadows that you put in doesn't have a cage around it.
That one was under 10,000. I'm approving that on my own.
You're gonna approve a fence getting put around it to protect it? Because
Yeah, the Indian Meadows will have one similar to this.
Okay.
It's much smaller.
Yeah.
Okay. And so it was under 10,000, so that's not on here. So
Okay.
both will have, it's the same situation.
Okay, okay. I do have one, if you don't mind. Who designed the bioretention? Who designed the bioretention for this
That
project?
was a subcontractor, Frontenac Engineering. They did all the civil work.
Thank you.
I have a question for the
Mhm.
city manager on the, on these, cage.
Uh-huh.
How long does it take to get that installed?
Not long. They'll be here shortly.
Thank you.
We could order a couple of those if you want. We could have those. You could get one for easy storage. That'd be in.
Chairman Pro Tem, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Okay, I'd be happy to entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve Hankins Construction's chamber proposals 35 and 37 totaling $23,543 for the park improvement project.
Call for the vote, please.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Knox.
Yes.
Councilmember Waldman.
Yes,
Chairman Carl,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes, thank you.
motion passed.
Next item, please.
The next item is discussion of imposing a sales tax of up to 3% on adult use marijuana.
So when the, oh, I'm sorry. You were gonna, I was
Okay.
jumping in from our
Yeah,
meeting. the
I
other
was
day.
just gonna tee it up. Don't have to though. Basically, I was just gonna go over the time frame.
Please do.
The, as you're aware, Constitutional Amendment 3 does allow for a local option sales tax of up to 3% on the sale of adult recreational, on the sale of adult marijuana. We do not have, we don't have a dispensary in the city, so we wouldn't have kind of sales information. There have been some anecdotal analysis that have been done. They're nothing that I would bring here. I also don't necessarily believe this is a question for, you know, for just basically based on finances. I don't think the city needs these funds. I think it's, again, it's kind of a syntax, and I think that's a decision that the council needs to make to put it on, whether or not you want to put it on. And what you would be doing, not tonight, but you would be approving an ordinance that would impose the tax. And the constitutional amendment then requires that to go before the voters at an election. So you would be doing, to get this on the ballot in April, if you do choose to do this, you would be having a first and second reading of the ordinance on your January 10th meeting, because January 24th is the day that we have to have ballot questions in. So that's just the time frame of it, and that's why it's before you tonight. And again, the question, and it's a little bit semantics, because the constitutional amendment requires it to go to a vote of the people. What you're doing is, what will come before you is an ordinance to impose the sales tax. So questions would be, do you want to do it? If you want to do it, do you want to do it? It's up to 3%. Cities around us, a number of them have done it. The cities that have agreed, that have approved the ordinance and to put it on the ballot, will be have all done it at 3%. Some cities have decided not to do it at this point. If they didn't have a dispensary, they decided to wait. So that's just kind of teeing it up for you.
Thank you. And tonight, we don't have to actually vote. We just have to give the city council, the city manager and Paul Martin, our lawyer, direction. So Chairman Pro Tem, you led a discussion on this on November 29th. I was unable to be at that meeting. Do you want to share first, or does anyone want to go first about how they feel about having it on the April 4th ballot?
Well, I can share what I shared at that meeting. I'm not sure that we had a consensus really for me to share. We can hear what other people have to say, but what I will say is I expressed at that meeting the desire to go ahead and put it on the ballot at 3%. I think it's something the voters can decide. So let's let them decide. For whatever reason, they may or may not want this tax. As we say, we're not interested in it for fiscal reasons. But there are other reasons that people may want to impose this tax. So I'm for it, putting it on the ballot.
I concur.
Great.
So I believe we're all in consensus.
Okay,
So
very good.
we,
They'll come before you January 10th.
okay, so January 10th, we'll have a first reading and a second reading.
Correct.
So that the ordinance can go to the election board, or
So that
whoever
we can then get the ballot
verbiage ready
question and submit it to the county.
for January 24th. Yeah, they have to have it to them by January 24th, and our next meeting after the 10th isn't till the 24th. That's why we're going to do a first and second reading on the same night, because we try to avoid doing that. So, thank you very much. Next item, please.
Next item is discussion of proposed amendment to Article 3, Chapter 220, smoking in public places.
That's funny when you say it like that. Smoking in public places. Again, sticking with the implications of Amendment 3, that does allow smoking of recreational marijuana in public places. It also allows the local government to restrict time and place, et cetera. This is what is before you is a red line version of the current smoking in public places ordinance. that is, again, adds some definitions and then makes a couple changes. With that, I'm gonna turn it over to the city attorney, Paul Martin, who actually worked on this draft.
All right, it was the existing smoking in public places code section is a little bit convoluted, so it was difficult to really address. But fundamentally, the changes that were made were designed to prohibit smoking on sidewalks and in other public areas. And in addition to that, I added a clause that essentially says you can't smoke on private property within 10 feet of a public area, street or a sidewalk, or 15 feet, I think it was. And that's a little bit aggressive because the Amendment 3 only allows us to regulate the public use of marijuana. And if someone wants to sit out in their front yard and enjoy one or something as, you know, the crowd drives by, arguably they have the right to do that. So the question is, at what point does it become a public issue? And that's why I put in the 15-foot limitation, because that was consistent with the previous ordinance about smoking within 15 feet of a outdoor restaurant or a line for a restaurant. So basically, it's kind of like the previous discussion, just need some direction on where you all want to go. And if I think this version is as prohibitive as it can be. And if that's what you want to do. If you want to do something else, then we need to talk about it.
I just ask about one word. Under smoking, Paul, the very last sentence there, you're saying other plant material excluding marijuana. That word excluding marijuana is confusing me.
It is confusing, and that is the way that the original code section is. So, and I need to revisit that, quite frankly.
Okay.
But initially, I thought that was the way we should go with it, but you know, if you can give me some idea about the direction.
And forgive me, but what I've read here, that is what confuses me. I keep going back and saying, what are we saying here? What is this saying? And I can't grasp it. So
Yeah.
I apologize.
Can we go down a little bit, Barbara?
Mhm.
All right, here's the prohibition. No person shall engage in smoking of marijuana in any public park, street, alley, right of way, sidewalk, or building. Or 2, within 15 feet of any such place, or 3, in any place in which the smoking of other products is prohibited by this section. So the first subsection was, and even that is a little bit confusing. The first part was to address normal smoking in public places, normal tobacco use. And this was meant to encompass all of that, plus 15 feet within a public place, plus the public place.
So this includes just regular cigarettes as well?
No, it doesn't change the,
It's
city's
always-
regulations on cigarettes. Yes.
Or cigars in our parks or at a restaurant, we have to step away from the door and walk. 50 feet away.
Mhm.
Go back up to the top where Missy had pointed out that. So this is just the definition? Is that what it is intended to be?
Yes, and initially, and again, I want to revisit this, but smoking prohibitions that you see in 220.210, that they pertain to the existing smoking regulations for other tobacco, pipes,
Okay.
cigars, cigarettes. So the goal was to distinguish between those smoking prohibitions and the marijuana smoking prohibitions.
Okay.
And I felt like having that language in there excluding marijuana was important to create that distinction. However, I do concede it is confusing
Mhm.
and perhaps we should take another look at it.
Okay. Okay. And then can you scroll up so we can go down? I don't know. No, the other way. Right. So is everyone comfortable with this next one? This is pretty much what we've had in place. Okay, but now we're extending it to marijuana.
Right. And part of the reason for excluding marijuana in that, frankly, was to ensure, at least this was the purpose, and as I sit here tonight, I don't know if it's accomplishing the purpose, but purpose was to not open a back door for smoking in these areas where smoking is allowed under the other smoking prohibition. But I will take a look at that.
And Barb, if you can keep scrolling. There's one more section in red.
And this is just the new penalty that is ascribed to smoking marijuana in public.
So there used to be
And that's based upon the
$200,
state.
didn't it?
The amendment limits it to $100.
Yeah, okay, right. Because that was based upon the language that's in the Constitution.
Right.
So what would the next step be?
Can we just go up a little bit again? To the prohibitions there. This is the breadth. This is what I need your input on, frankly. You don't want to allow smoking in a public park or on a street or alley or right of way or public building, right? That's pretty obvious. Question is sidewalk. There was some discussion about, do we want to allow it on sidewalks? That was raised earlier by the public comment. And this definitely says no person shall engage in it on sidewalks. So that's my first question. Is that the direction you
So
want to go?
currently, when you take a walk on throughout Olivet, people are not smoking on the sidewalk. And it's pleasant. I don't know that we would want to change that.
It wouldn't change it. It would just, I mean, you can smoke on a sidewalk now if you want to.
Well, where I walk, I don't see people out there smoking. do you?
How often you walk up and down our street?
Well, I'm not, well,
I
I'm
mean, if
talking
you
about,
look, there's cigarette butts all up and down the street.
I'm talking about like through our park, through the bike trail, from.
Oh, yeah, I'm all for that. I don't want anybody smoking in my parks or bike trails and things like that, but it's a major thoroughfare
No, I don't
going
think we
down
can
our
control Owl Street Road because it's a MoDOT, but I don't know, can we?
So let me ask a question. It's space and distance that we can control. So let me ask a question, Paul. What if I wanted it to say within 25 feet? I mean,
Well,
the cigarette smoking is 15 feet.
right.
And so if I say, hey, I want it to be 25 feet, is it cigarette smoking and the marijuana? Or are you asking that there be a differential in the foot difference of marijuana smoking versus?
This
other
would only
cigarette?
pertain to marijuana.
Okay.
Now, if you wanted to do 20, and we're getting off sidewalks here, we're going into number 2. So, I mean, I'm not sure where we stand on sidewalks and I don't want to leave that, but if we're going to talk about that.
Well, I want sidewalks in there. I want that language in there. What I'm asking in conversation is, I want the sidewalks and everything in there. My thing is within blank feet of any such place.
Yeah.
And so to me, what if I wanted to say 25 feet?
Well,
Is that obnoxious? Is that appropriate?
I don't know.
I think,
It's risky.
I
I
think
mean,
you also,
15 feet is risky.
you also want to think about sidewalks and how far back are our homes and that sort of thing. I mean, if you can't
Yeah.
get to a point where you're restricting someone from smoking on their porch or
No,
outside of there.
But
I
50
think, not that,
and it's a question,
somebody would challenge it.
15 feet is 3 of me. I'm 5 feet. So that's the way I look and measure stuff. It's
Really?
3 of me. 3 of me is not a lot of feet away. So, you know, so that, that's what I would.
Well,
measure.
let me reinforce something about 15 feet.
Yeah,
which
go
is
ahead.
Why I think it's important for you to consider this. The amendment doesn't permit a restriction of smoking marijuana on private property within 15 feet of a public property, okay? The amendment doesn't allow that. So we are in a very hazy legal area with that 15 feet. And that subjects us to a certain risk that it'll get sued, it'll get challenged, and the city will get sued. However, 15 feet to me was consistent with the 15 feet limitation that we have in the other smoking prohibition. And I think there's an argument that 15 feet is justifiable to ensure that smoking on private property doesn't migrate and become an issue on public property. Now, if you go to 25 feet, you are increasing that risk and making it more likely that someone would challenge the legality of that limitation. Because 25 feet is pretty deep into somebody's front yard.
Okay, I mean, you know, I'm legally minded, so I had to ask the question.
Oh, yeah, I understand.
Okay, thank you.
But I want you to understand that even with the 15 feet, you're taking on a little bit of a risk.
I
there.
do, but I'm gonna play that we have precedents here because we've had it in cigarette no smoking and it's been in our zoning. It's been in our regulations already. It's not a new thing that we're doing. But I appreciate the conversation and you know I'm gonna ask the question.
Yeah, sure,
So thanks much.
sure.
Councilmember Knox.
Mr. Martin, I have a question about where does hopefully we're gonna have some restaurants down at, more restaurants down at Price and 170. And there are also some patio dining that we have now. And where does that 15 feet start?
It wouldn't pertain to that. That would be prohibited anyway.
It's already.
Outside,
Yes,
It's
that would be a public place.
It's already,
Okay.
you already have an ordinance.
because sometimes I'm sitting outside and people are smoking
Right,
on the patio.
right.
That's forbidden. Is that correct?
For marijuana, yes.
No,
Or-
what about for smoking?
Yes,
Or cigarette smoking. it'd be
Yes.
forbidden too, wouldn't it?
yes, it is.
People do it anyway.
So
Well,
I think that what we ought to do, once that we polish this up and make our decision, is we probably need to send a reminder out to the owners or the managers and have it posted in their restaurants. Because I have gotten up in outdoor restaurants in Olivet and gone in and said to the managers and owners, you've got people smoking at the tables. Because that's just who I am. But I think that, you know, we don't have to be shy about it when there's an issue.
Could I bring up one more thing? Because I get this in my day job. People living in apartments and we're building apartments in the city. And this is, I can smell the guy smoking the pot up on the third floor. It's coming down into my ventilation system. It's coming into my apartment. I can't stand the smell. And we're gonna get that. So, but, and you're right, there's nothing that really can be done. But my question ends up being, so we have some of the apartments that have their little, porches or patios that put them outside, but they're still within their residence. They're okay with that? I mean, they're not in violation because they're technically outside, but it's their private residence.
I guess would be yes, they would probably be all right.
Okay,
And I wouldn't see it as any different than a porch. And yes, if there is a problem where one apartment wafts into another, fragrance from one apartment wafts into another apartment, I mean, you can't control everything. That's a private issue, and if it's that big of a nuisance, they can pursue it.
that's what I have to tell people
And
when
that
they
would be a
start telling
landlord
me.
issue,
Yeah.
not a city issue.
It might be a landlord issue, depending on.
So I have a question, Lee.
Please go ahead.
Okay, so there was a concern that this could be used to harass people. Is there any need to mention in here that this is not grounds for a search or anything like that?
There's not, but
Okay,
the amendment has specific language that recognizes that the odor of marijuana can't be used to justify a search warrant and perhaps a search by itself. And that is just another aspect of this that we got to look into.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I agree with you there. As I said to my fellow council member, Mr. Clark, Councilmember Clark, the language, when he brought that up, I clearly identified tons of language that protects that injustice of mistreatment on the law or the government. So, you know, I mean, we're gonna become the example of any state now that doesn't have recreational marijuana. It deals with equity, it deals with, history, it deals with expungement, so much more than just looking at it the way Illinois has looked at it.
Say this. I don't particularly like the smell of it any more than anyone else in here. And there have been countless laws on the books in this country that are supposed to have equal application. And they all may have good intentions, but unfortunately, they are not applied equally. Regardless to what they may have written into the law or not, it is still one of those things where you can pick and choose who you want to apply this law to. This is still very vague. Okay, as far as someone walking down the street smoking marijuana, I don't think that we're going to have parades of people walking up and down smoking marijuana. I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't. But I know a lot of young people that do smoke it. Okay, I have some in my family that do smoke it. And my concern is they're just out and about with their friends, just walking down the street, and they're passing one between one another out on Olive Street. And then next thing you know, they're getting a citation, or for whatever reason, they don't like their attitude, and it blows up from there. Historically, people of color have had a lot of issues with police. Not to say that that's going to happen here in Olivet. I haven't had any bad experiences here in Olivet, but you just don't know who's going to have a bad day. And I'm just trying to be proactive and look at how this could blow up into something really bad when it's not necessary to have on the books in the first place. We don't have to put sidewalks on there. I really don't believe we're going to have people parading up and down smoking marijuana. Now, as far as having it in a restaurant or in the parks or in your private neighborhoods or what have you, I'm all for that. But on the middle of Olive Street, Highway 340, I don't think that's necessary. That's just my personal opinion. Again, I don't like the smell of it either. I'm just concerned about the application of the law.
Well, one of my thoughts, and city manager pretty much just echoed it, was this, again, there's several aspects to this, one of which is going to be the ordinances that they're called criminal laws, but criminal ordinances, where it's included in a different section of the code. And in that section, perhaps we can address those situations to limit the authority of officers, but it's not something I'm prepared to talk about tonight.
That's fine. At least we can discuss it at a later time.
It's similar, I mean, there was a similar conversation with, right after I started with the seatbelt law. And it was with the seatbelt.
Yeah.
And the concern of
Yeah.
that would become a reason you could stop someone. And so it's, so I see somebody I don't necessarily know or think should be in this area, and I can pull them over for seatbelt. And that was addressed this similar way, that you can't. Can't be
a
the sole,
primary
can't be the
offense.
primary offense for stopping someone.
It's happened to me twice in this city. Twice. I've
As
been
a primary
pulled over
offense.
in Olivet. I've been pulled over 2 times for not wearing my seatbelt. God is my witness, right here in this city.
And I think should have concerns about this.
And see, I didn't know that you couldn't do that. And most young people out there don't know that. Yes. Before, before I became a council member, it happened to me. But I just thought it was something legally you could do. I didn't argue.
I don't remember when we clarified that. I remember this was a big issue with Gene Antoine. I remember that conversation. But I don't remember when we really clarified that, no, you cannot make this
It
stop.
was more, it was after the initial passage of the seatbelt
Okay.
violation law.
I'll tell you where it happened. I was coming down Olive Street. I was making a right turn at McDonald's to go down Gilman to go see my father. And there was a police officer sitting in the parking lot where the old 66 station was. He saw me turn the corner. He gets behind me. He flashes his light and said, "Hey, I noticed you didn't have your seatbelt on. I might have to give you a citation." I took the citation. And you know what I did? I thanked him for the ticket because he could have very well saved my life. You don't know. But at the same time, I didn't realize you can't do that. You know?
I'd have to look over that ordinance. I think it was
When it first came out, you could.
a primary.
When it first came out, it was primary and it was only more recently. when
And then we
the-
changed it.
It was only more recently when the state changed it.
Okay,
Right, but I remember,
but it was primary.
I'm just, and I don't mean to be distracting, but I think it's a similar situation
Yeah.
that a council has dealt with before. And I think there are truths.
so Paul, does this give you, well, it gives you a lot of food for thought, but does it give you more to take back to the drawing board?
Well, yeah, the only thing,
Where could you use more direction from us?
sidewalks.
Well, I will say that if we resolve the issue that satisfactorily about whether that would be a way to harass anyone. If we resolve that, I'm fine with sidewalks and I'm fine with a distance. I don't really care whether it's 10 or 15 feet if you want to try that. So
But,
that's my thought.
The other thing, just to let you know, Councilman, is Police Chiefs Association and the Prosecutor's Office on both sides of the river are in St. Charles and in St. Louis County. They are discussing these procedures. And so this isn't new to everybody else. They have the same concerns that we have. We can't pull someone over just because they can, or just because they can smell it and they walk up to the car.
Yeah, there's actually a webinar on that very issue either
Yeah.
tomorrow or Thursday. So maybe that'll help illuminate it. But let me see what I can do. And yeah, I don't know that anybody's in a real hurry to get this done. There's no certification date that we need to worry about. So let me see what I can do and we'll talk more.
Okay,
That's
thank you.
respectable.
And thank you everyone for sharing your concerns and thoughts. Next item, please.
Next item is hearing from citizens, part 2.
Does anyone here like to speak? Why don't you come speak and then you can fill that out.
I'm Kate Hellman. I live at 800 North Price. I am in favor of the initiative being put to the voters regarding a local use sales tax. The question that I have, because I know that these amendments sometimes have really tricky wording in it. A question for the city attorney is if there's anything in the amendment that you have found that would, by enacting a sales tax, thereby limit the potential for the 2024 ballot initiative to ban. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that opening one door didn't automatically close another. And then I just really appreciate the nuanced discussion around enforcement for however the wording comes about. I think it's really, really important to look at policing issues and racial justice and injustice issues and how whatever we enact can impact different areas of our society in different ways. And so I really appreciate the detailed and nuanced discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. If you could fill out the card and give it to Denise. Raphael?
Rockfield Manson, 809 Newcastle Drive. I just wanted to address two things that I said before, but just to kind of put them on again. I have a different view about where pot smoking and sidewalks may go, again, based on experiences in other cities. So I hope that we can kind of work out a way to make this work for everyone. I just know that there's other cities where you walk by and it's like, it's just a constant smell of marijuana. It's not like a subtle thing. It's not like one home or one person's doing it. You walk by 20 feet and it's done. It's like everywhere. And that's what I'm worried about. I think there's other language, but one thing I would say is I also see no reason why maybe as part of a solution, there can't be a penalty of $0, $5, whatever, for the first, second offense. I'm not worried about one person smoking one time, getting caught, and then, you know, having to really lay down a hammer. And I just hope that there's other, you know, maybe there's other similar types of solutions that we can do that can warn people, not be heavy-handed, but also just make sure that we don't end up in a situation where it's very widespread, which is the issue that I'm worried about. So I just wanted to throw that idea out there. Thank you guys for a very serious and very productive discussion.
Thank you.
Raphael, on the cities that you were talking about where it was a constant smell, were these heavily populated cities?
Well, certainly Los Angeles, where I've been, is, but I'm thinking, you know, I lived in Los Angeles in a very residential area that, you know,
Was it
so it wasn't the same
suburban?
density of down. It felt suburban, but it was in fact in Los Angeles itself. Not all of LA is high rise. A lot of LA is, you know, normal houses with businesses on certain streets and not on other streets. I'll also say I've had a big problem with and this comes from the dispensary, and I don't know why it is in University City, but I find I used to go to the Loop and in warmer months eat outside. I don't do that anymore because it's just intolerable. You know, you sit there, you try to have your meal, and it just smells like huge amount of marijuana. I've tried to figure out where it is. I don't actually see anyone smoking it in front of me. So I don't know why it smells terrible, but it smells like people are smoking it and I can't see where it is. So I'll just leave it there, but that's another example I have, which I think is kind of similar to where we are. I just want to be able to be out and for me to be out and my kids to be out and that stuff and not feel like I have to deal with it. I have no moral problem with people smoking marijuana. To be honest, if I'm not aware of it, you know, I'm all for things. And I also do think equality and not allowing subjective choice of the law. I think that's super important too. You know, I understand that these are hard things to balance out. I feel like everyone's trying to balance these things out. So I appreciate it.
Thank you, Raphael.
So, based on his comment, didn't we, well, you were chief at the time, actually. When we did the seatbelt issue, that the first like 6 months, the officers were instructed just to give people warnings. If you pulled someone over and they didn't have on a seatbelt, they were supposed to give them a verbal warning and not, so that they had time to like learn that this was the new ordinance. But, you know, that can be part of another conversation another time. May I add something? Okay. Okay, next item, please.
Next item is review and approval of minutes.
I saw no changes.
So it's for October 18th, the 1st, the 29th, and the 6th. And the 8th, so 1, 2. Okay. Do you want to do them individually or one lump? Okay,
As presented.
okay. I'd be happy to entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes as written for December 6th, November 29th, November 1st, October 18th,
And
And-
November 8th.
the November 8th as well.
Is there a
Second.
second?
Second,
Call for the vote, please.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Knox,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldman,
yes.
Chairman Carl,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes,
motion passed.
thank you. Next item.
Next item is the city attorney's report.
Mayor and council, you might have noticed today that the Missouri Court of Appeals issued an opinion that was kind of interesting. Last year, I think it was last year, might have been the year before, the plaintiffs in the class action lawsuit against Charter Communications for their voice over internet protocol succeeded and won a verdict of $39 million in class action for cities. And that was affirmed today by the Court of Appeals. And it is not concluded yet. The charter has the right to appeal that or try to appeal that to the Missouri Supreme Court. They would file a motion to transfer the case. Generally, it takes the court 3 to 4 weeks maybe to make a decision on motions to transfer. They have 15 days to make the motion, 15 days from today. Then it generally takes the court 2 or 3 or 4 weeks after that to make a decision on a motion to transfer. So we're not final yet, but it's a good development, and hopefully the Supreme Court will deny a transfer, and that will be final and will lead to some money for cities in state of Missouri again.
So they want to transfer from, they want to transfer to the federal Supreme Court?
No, Missouri Supreme Court.
Okay.
Theoretically, I guess they could make an appeal to the certiorari appeal to the Supreme Court,
Yeah,
but I don't see that happening.
Yeah, but because when you appeal, you're really saying you made an error on your interpretation of law.
Yeah.
Not that we disagree with you. It's like you made an error in law. Okay, okay.
All right, that's all I have. No closed session.
Well, I want to wish everyone a happy and healthy holiday season and new year. This is our last meeting of 2022, and have a safe new year, and we'll be back together in 2023.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.